Welcome to the Endurance Drive podcast.
Our mission is to share the key principles that structure our approach to endurance training and coaching.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Katie.
And today, what number are we?
We are number 5.
Wow. You know that most podcasts die after 3?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, see, we got around that by releasing all 3 episodes at once. So maybe we'll die by episode 6, but for now we're on episode 5. So
we're going to keep going.
Nothing to worry about.
Right. There we go. And you told me before the podcast, before you rolled in here, that I had to say this was a special day. Why is today special?
Well, today's a very special day because it's our first podcast with a live studio audience.
Yay.
Of 1. So our live studio audience today is Miss Colleen, our really amazing gear and social media chair, and she's taking some footage so that we can show you what it's like live from the Pain Cave where we do most of our recordings.
Thanks, Colleen.
She says you're welcome. She does not have a mic.
And also, it is the day after Christmas.
It is.
Yeah.
It's Boxing Day, which we don't celebrate, but we are celebrating the aftermath of Christmas for some very special reasons, including some special Christmas gifts.
What did Santa bring you?
Santa brought me this year a race registration.
Yay!
Hooray! And our core fans will notice that in a Strava post recently, I alluded to my 2024 A race being chosen. That's exactly what we're talking about here. So I have signed up for a race in 2024.
Is this the big reveal?
This is the big reveal.
We get to hear it?
We should probably
Okay.
add a drum roll, right?
Okay.
Drum roll,
Yep.
please. Bada-bada-bada-bada-bada-bada-bada. Maybe we can edit in an actual drum roll. But yes, I signed up for my 2024 A race, which is at the end of July this year, and it is the Sea to Summit triathlon. And I'll say my first exposure actually to Sea to Summit was when Jim did this race back in 2018. And I was lucky enough to be his porter, they call it, which is someone who's in charge of all of the logistics of the racer. So Jim, actually, would you tell us a little bit about Sea to Summit?
Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, you did a great job.
Thank
Being
you.
my porter, thank you very much. Okay, so Sea to Summit. You swim near the Atlantic. I guess sometimes they swim in the Atlantic, and other times you swim in a river near the Atlantic.
But
down
that's the sea.
in the sea coast of New Hampshire. And then you bike about 95 miles to Wildcat Mountain, which is at the base of Mount Washington. And then the last leg is that you hike Mount Washington to the top.
Yes, exactly. And I thought that that was the coolest race ever because it really combines a lot of things that I love and then gets rid of some things I don't like so much about the sport of triathlon. So we are minimizing the swim, but keeping a really long bike, and we're subbing the road run for a trail run. So I thought it'd be perfect.
And yeah, so why this race? How come not another Ironman, Katie?
Yeah, it's a good question. And a lot of people were wondering if I'd do another Ironman next year after having a really great year with Lake Placid and Kona in 2023. But it's really just a big year for me life-wise. I feel like I've reached this age where, we're going to a ton of different weddings and bachelorette parties and graduations, and I'm finishing my PhD program, and all this stuff is happening, which is just going to make it really, really hard to live sort of the monk-style life that we've talked about if you're trying to get ready for an Ironman, because I'm going to be traveling a lot and I'm going to be moving around quite a bit. So I wanted to do something that, would have a lot of features that I really, really like, but does take a little bit of the pressure off, because inevitably in doing an Ironman, I'm going to feel some level of pressure. And I was really happy with my performances last year. So this year's a little bit more trending towards fun.
So you're celebrating the win from last year.
Yes.
Still. Yes. Yeah.
We
Perfect.
have a 2024 victory lap.
And that's important.
And that being said, I still think I can build some fitness and improve. I'm really excited about the terrain of this race. And more broadly, I'm really excited about getting more into some solid trail running training. So I've always done a lot of really dedicated road training prep, but I've never actually trained for trail running. It's always been something that I've just done for fun, kind of during my off season. And I love it so much. But the idea of doing trail running workouts, I think would be really, really cool. And maybe then I'd get into some trail races or something like that down the line.
And you probably also aren't a huge fan of the 4,000-yard swims.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am not a
right?
huge fan of the 4,000-yard swims, believe it or not. I am a reformed adult swimmer, I guess they call it, but I still don't love it too much. So being able to minimize that, I think will be fantastic.
Perfect. That's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We look forward. You should probably get a coach.
I should. Actually, I was going to use this podcast, Jim, to ask you a really important question. Would you be willing to coach me for Sea to Summit in 2024?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, assuming that you will, I'd actually love to use this time to dive into a little bit your thoughts on what this training plan might look like, because I think it relates to this conversation that we've had about season planning and about structuring a training plan. But since this race demands some sort of different features than we've done in the past, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we're going to do this.
Well, I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I'm prepared.
Great.
All right, great. Okay, so well, I mean, you started off by just discussing a lot, sort of some of your goals and why you wanted to do that. I think it's always one of the first questions we ask our athletes: why do you want to do this? Right? It's a really big commitment, so there has to be a why there, and an important why there. We also want to talk about how much time do you have to commit to the training, right? Also, where will you be located? Will you be traveling a lot? Is there, do you have business travel? Like you talked about, you have a lot of weddings coming up and those kind of celebratory things as well. And also, like, are there any, strengths or weaknesses that you want to target for this race? So, in general, we talk about race planning as this sort of partnership and negotiation between coach and athlete.
Absolutely, yeah. And my goal is to work with this sort of difficult year in terms of exciting stuff, but travel stuff, and make this race fit within that. If that's something you're up for, I think that we can probably get kind of creative with it, as we've had to do in the past. So with that in mind, what do you think it'll look like kind of moving from January to February? I think we'll probably get started in the new year like a lot of our athletes. So I'm curious to hear what kind of workouts I'm going to be doing.
Sure. So we have extensive notes here, and we're going to go through them. And so as a coach and athlete, I want you to chime in here as well as I go through each month. And actually, one of the nice things about this podcast is we have really extensive notes on our website.
We do. Yeah. Quick sidebar for our extended show notes. If you go to the Endurance Drive website, you can find really long notes on all of our podcasts, as well as links to different products or resources that we recommend. So if this seems to be going by really fast and you're trying to take notes, don't worry. We've done it for you. Just head over to the website.
Great. Perfect. So we have like about 7 months to plan this out. Okay. So let's start in January. All right.
Coming up.
So on the bike, probably easy and tempo Zwift rides.
Sounds good.
Base runs with some 20, 30-second pickups. Hopefully some winter hiking if winter ever arrives, right? And maybe you'll get back in the pool.
Yes, I've taken about a month out of the pool, and it's been really nice to not spend all my time there. But I think 1 or 2 times per week, having it in the schedule will probably motivate me to do it a little bit more, because that is a little bit harder for me to motivate for.
Right. So low pressure swimming in January.
Can I ask you a question about January?
Sure.
So right now, it was 45 degrees today. I rode my bike outside. There's really no snow in the forecast coming up. Do you think I should just stay outside as long as I can, or is there an advantage to kind of getting on Zwift as soon as I can?
There's advantages and disadvantages to both.
Okay.
Right. We talk a lot about using the outside, especially in this winter and spring, to keep up that outdoor durability, right? That length, right? But also, it's easier to build strength and power on Zwift, right?
Okay.
So probably, during weekdays you'll be inside, I assume, right? And then weekends, hopefully, if it's warmer, we'll be outside.
Okay.
Is that right?
And I guess if we can't bike outside, maybe we'll ski outside.
For sure, right? Yeah.
Awesome. I hope that's in the plan.
Oh yeah, I hope so too. Okay, moving on to February, sort of similar to January, but we'll do again some zone 2, some tempo, and we'll introduce some short threshold Zwift workouts. We'll increase the run intervals to 1 to 2 minutes at threshold, sort of it's 5K, 10K pace, right? And probably stick on that 2 times per week swim as well. Yeah.
My guess is I'm probably going to do more like 1 time per week in January. And then if we can scale up to 2 from there, that sounds great.
Perfect. And we'll really focus on technical 50s. Don't worry about time or pace. And we'll probably do a little bit of speed and strength with paddles, right? What's our favorite way to end a swim workout?
Our favorite way to end a swim workout is adding on 4 by 200 yards with paddles and buoy. That's a great way to just get 800 more yards. And it's not like it's junk yards. It's really, really high quality strength type work in the pool. So we will get really fast by the end of our progression doing that. But you'll find that if it's your first time, that can really tire out your upper body. So it takes a little bit of adjusting to get used to. Yeah. And then if you do it well, you will swim really, really fast with a wetsuit.
Right, you can start with 4 by 100, for example, right? And then work to 150s and then 200s.
Yep.
Okay. All right, March. Gets a little spicy in March.
Ooh, we love March spice.
So we'll do a little bit of neuromuscular work, 10 to 20 seconds. We will also do some anaerobic capacities. Those are 20 seconds to 40 seconds at about 125% of FTP.
Okay.
And FTP, just for those who don't know, it's called functional threshold power.
Okay.
And it's what kind of watts or power you can hold or effort you can hold for an hour.
Nice.
So when you hear us say FTP, it's basically your hour power. So again, some spice in March, right?
Those hurt.
Yeah, they do. And hopefully it'll warm up a little bit more, get some long rides if the weather permits. And for running, we'll probably do some hill intervals, continue with some hiking, hopefully, and some short threshold running.
Yeah, and I'm assuming runs are all kind of happening on the roads right now because we will not really have good trail access if the winter is anything like it usually is.
And then maybe we can coax you into 3 times a week in the pool.
Ugh, I was hoping that by signing up for Sea to Summit, I would never have to do 3 times a week in the pool, but I will get in the pool 3 times a week if you tell me to.
Okay. Perfect. Great athlete. April, zone 2, tempo, and probably some sweet spot, which is about 90% of your FTP, right?
Yep.
So during the week, and then again, long rides on the weekends, back to more hill run intervals. And really want to work that upper aerobic range.
Okay.
Right? Sea to summit is really this perfect test of your aerobic threshold, right? When you drop your bike at Wildcat and head for Mount Washington, you basically just drill it at your threshold heart rate, and you stay there until you get to the top of Mount Washington.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
That's the theory,
if we can
right?
show up like ready to do that, I think that would be a really great race.
And the swims will be, one mixed swim per week, one speed and one strength.
Alrighty.
Right? All right. May it's very similar to April, actually. So not a lot to talk about there. Maybe we can sneak in some 3 to 4 hour long rides in May. Yeah, right. Start to warm up a little bit.
Yep, that'll get me ready for that 95-mile ride in Sea to Summit.
And then June, we'll bump up the bike volume even more.
Okay.
Maybe 4 to 5 hours. We'll start to focus really on hiking a lot. So we're just sort of working from least specific to most specific. So hiking is obviously a real core piece of this here. And we'll focus on getting some vertical, and we'll probably do some weighted carries as well. I don't think we've done those yet with you.
Yeah, we've not. So I'm going to carry you up the mountain.
You are. Just like last time in 2019, right?
That's how it works.
But we'll probably use 10% of your body weight in a pack and just walk up a local hill, right?
Cool.
Do some hill repeats, right? More road running, more swimming. Hopefully at that point we'll be outside, and we'll add in a long distance open water swim at that point. And hopefully we'll do like a race sim at 8 weeks.
Yep.
Right?
Hopefully we can get on some trails for that race sim, like go straight to the whites, just like we like to do.
So we try to really make the race sim in week 8 and week 4 very similar to your race.
Perfect.
July. All right, here we go. Last 4 weeks,
stretch.
right? Yeah. All right. Big, again, things sort of just big rides. Like, I mean, as you mentioned, right, we want to make that 95 miles just feel super, super easy, right?
Yep.
And I think for Sea to Summit, we'll probably focus around 80 to 85% of your FTP for most of it. We'll see how the training goes, right? But you'll sort of play around with that. But what's sustainable? Ironman is usually around 72% of your FTP, so could be have to go 26 miles afterwards, obviously. So this one's a little bit different because we have to just hike 5 miles.
Yeah,
right? So,
it's interesting because it is a race that's usually like probably going to be under 7-ish hours, which is closer to a half Ironman effort, but definitely longer than that. So it'll be interesting to kind of go in between the two distances and see how the effort all shakes out.
Yeah, so we'll figure that out, and we'll do a bunch of 10, 20-minute, 30-minute bike intervals, that 80, 85% of FTP, and just kind of figure out what feels good, right? What leaves you enough energy to get to on top of Mount Washington pretty quickly.
That sounds great. Then we taper?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. Should we?
Yes. Taper sounds good to me.
Yeah. So we always say after the week 4 race sim, what do we always say? The hay is in.
The hay is in the barn. Exactly.
That's right. So week 3, we'll do some stuff, but, week 2, week 1, and then race week is really just kind of taper and sharpening. Right.
Well, this sounds like a ton of fun, and thank you for being willing to kind of work this stuff around my very busy schedule. I'm sure that we'll probably try to stack some of those long rides on, say, a Friday if I'm going to be gone on a Saturday and Sunday, and luckily my work schedule makes it pretty easy to do that. So hopefully you'll also join me for some of these rides. I always appreciate a buddy. We've done a lot of these long rides together so far. And yeah, we hope that this type of overview is useful to other races as well, and people just think about how we think about seasons progressing. And, we encourage you to ask us questions about races that are a little bit more non-traditional. This is a format and distance that we don't see all the time, so it's not necessarily like a one-size-fits-all half Ironman or Ironman plan is going to work. And in general, we don't really have those one-size-fits-all plans because we're always individualizing. But yeah, really appreciate the creativity here, and I'm super excited to get started.
Yeah, my pleasure. And yeah, and as Katie says, we do have very customized plans, and everybody's individual. But you could probably take the bare bones of this and adjust it to either a half Ironman or an Ironman plan. So we sort of outlined the first 7 months before a big A race, right? A big long distance.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I think this is actually a really good segue to our topic for today's episode 5, which is lessons from 2023. So our goal for today is, we're thinking ahead to 2024, but we also want to think back to 2023 and put together all the lessons that we learned from coaching and training and share them with you all, because hopefully they're a little bit helpful for you in thinking about your own training and maybe your own life. So yeah, this episode will really transcend like the training principles and the life principles. So I'm going to let Jim start us off. Jim, what are some lessons you had this year from training?
I had many lessons.
Many lessons.
But I had to minimize them just to 5.
5 lessons. Well, actually, I have to say, you gave me a lot of shit for coming up with 10 injury prevention tips last week. So here you are with 5 lessons from training. But I know that they're all good. I've seen the notes, so I'm going to allow it just this once.
Okay, thank you. Okay, lesson number one from
Okay.
2023. Actually, I have to admit, it's actually a lesson from like 2020, actually.
Okay. All right. But
it's taking me 3 years to get around to this one. So we're going to put it in the 2023 bucket. And that was, I went to the gym one day and looked in the mirror and I saw this really skinny, weak endurance athlete. I thought, who's that guy? That guy was me.
Yep.
Right? So finally started to lift
Yep.
this year. Started to really get serious about it. As we talked about sort of in our last podcast and mentioned strength training was I started really easy, just going through the motions. And after a few weeks, I added more weight. And then, and now I'm sort of lifting pretty heavy 4 times a week.
Nice.
Right? And it feels fantastic, right?
You're lifting in this room right here, the pain cave.
In the pain cave, right? Exactly right. Yeah.
I'm sure that also dovetailed really nicely with getting a really good setup at home that just makes it so seamless to be able to do that. I think we encourage people, if you can, to have just some weights at home such that you can just very easily go to whatever room that is, go to your garage, go downstairs, and spend 30 minutes on strength training.
As long as it's just heavy. I think there's a lot of strength programs out there, and there's nothing wrong with body weight.
Yep.
And I feel like that fits more into mobility and,
Yep.
and stretching, right? Body weight stuff. But if you really want to challenge yourself and really build muscle and get serious about strength, especially for our master athletes, you do need to either have a gym,
Yep.
buy heavy weights or go to a gym that has heavy weights and really progress to that point where you're really challenging your motor units. Right.
And would you say those heavy weights can take a lot of different forms? Like, are you good with kettlebells? Are you good with dumbbells? Are you good with, a rack? How does that work for you?
All those things, right? So whatever you can get. So
Okay.
for example, here in the pain cave, we have kettlebells, we
Yep.
have barbells, we have dumbbells, but really that can just be anything as long as it's just
Heavy. Cool.
Just go heavy. Right. Exactly right.
That's awesome.
And as we mentioned in the last podcast, like just compound movements, right? So I'm doing bench press, I'm doing squats, I'm doing pull-ups, I'm doing shoulder presses, and
Yep.
also throwing in some back extensions, some calf raises, some lat pulls. So, but you got serious about strength this year too, as well.
I did, yeah. Actually, this is sort of a training lesson for both of us because in the last year, right before last year's build, so my 2023 build, I guess it was then the fall of 2022, I started getting a lot more serious about strength training as well. And I really was new to, any type of heavy lifting. So I ended up working with a strength trainer just so that I could learn what these movements even look like. And I found that, after working with the trainer for about a month, I didn't really need it anymore because I knew what those motions are. But I think that's one of the huge things that led to such a successful season for me in 2023. Faster times, not getting injured, and overall just feeling a lot stronger on the swim, bike, and run was strength related. So just a lesson to everyone, now's a great time to get into some strength training. We talked about it for injury prevention. We talked about it in season planning, and we encourage it very, very highly.
Yeah, well, kudos for hiring a professional to help you out too, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, right on. Okay, number 2.
Number 2.
This was a big one.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I'm like many anxious type A, high achieving, tightly wound triathletes.
You? Me?
Yeah.
What?
Really? What? Yeah.
That doesn't sound familiar
Yeah,
to
I know.
anyone we know.
I know. It's so strange, right? Over the years, I think I've primarily managed my mental health, via my exercise. Does that sort of sound familiar to you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the way I view this is I sort of view it as a scale, right? So on one side I have the physical side, and then on the other side of the scale is this mental side. And then sort of throughout the day, as things pile up, anxiety piles up, the mental side sort of gets out of balance with the physical side, right? And then I go outside and I'll go for a run or bike or swim, whatever it is, and I'll sort of shave off some grams off the mental side and add some weight to the physical side. And generally, at the end of the day or the end of those workouts, I feel pretty balanced, right? And I think that works most of the time. But I think I realized in 2023 that sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, you can get injured. Sometimes it doesn't even work in ways that you expect. Maybe you're not injured and you just try to go out for that run. It doesn't work. So what did that look like for you once you made that realization that this doesn't always work in the way that you might expect it to? How did you kind of adapt and think about other ways to manage mental health without only relying on training and exercise?
Right. For me, most of the time, I was sort of confused for a long time. Like, why? Like, I've done my workouts. Like, why do I still feel like, right? And I think for me, mostly it was just about being aware that it wasn't always going to be an equal. Like, I couldn't equal the scale like every single day. Right. There's going to be some days where I'm going to feel better than other days. So for me, it was just mostly just being aware of like that it doesn't always work, right? So I need then to carve out some more time to think about, just be aware, right, and balance out that scale.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that in general, like stress and anxiety aren't things that we can always perfectly eliminate, but the awareness is one of the best first steps. I think on my end, I've thought a lot about, the training and exercise are super important to me, and I know they help when it comes to managing mental health, but I've tried really hard to isolate the elements of that matter so much for me. And I think I realized that at the end of the day, really the best thing to make me feel really, really good is spending time outside with people that I love. And it's not always the exact training and movement. So if you gave me two choices between like sitting on the porch outside in some trees with people that I really love and just having a good time versus running on a treadmill in a city, I know that the outside time would matter so much more. So once I was able to identify that, it took the pressure off of trying to always rely on the training and the exercise, because I could isolate those elements that mattered so much to me. But sometimes they're conflated when, my happiest times ever have been like doing stuff outside with people I love, and it's usually kind of training oriented. Mm-hmm, so yeah, having those two things in my back pocket is great. And I think that's a really, really good lesson for this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I think we're talking more and more about mental health as a culture. And so it's being led by some really prominent sports figures as well.
Absolutely.
That's just very cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hope that that's a topic we'll keep coming back to on this podcast. We know that it intersects with training and goal setting and everything else so much. We'll probably come back to it within this podcast, just this episode. So yeah, thanks for shedding some light on it for sure.
Okay, number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3, I'm calling all roads lead to Rome on a trainer.
Okay. Care to expand?
Yeah, okay, I will. Okay, so I think that all trainer, both structured and even unstructured, oh my gosh, is productive work. Right. So we have this very extensive Zwift library, about 350 workouts that we drop to our athletes in a Dropbox, and they can import that into Zwift. And so we get all fancy with our zones and periodization and key workouts, and we have all this designed for specific stimuluses, for physical attribute. But I think what I realized like last winter was that you could probably simplify your trainer work and just say, I'm going to do easy, medium, and hard. If you really stuck to that 80-20 principle and just did a lot of easy, like super easy stuff on the trainer, and you spent maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 hours on the trainer in the winter, you'd still come out in the springtime being pretty powerful. You'd be a Watts beast, right? So there is a time and place, obviously, for structured, right? And we do encourage you to have a coach and do structured training, but honestly, I think if you just spend a lot of time on your trainer, you just get super tough.
Yeah. I love that. And I think also if you think about Zwift having these courses that do have varied terrain, and they have these little sprint bursts, and they have a lot of stuff where you can insert variety without necessarily having a structured workout, I think don't be afraid to use those, because those can be really fun. It's competitive, it's interesting, and it doesn't just mean you have to just go on Zwift triple flat loops and ride there at 100 watts for 2 hours.
Or do a Zwift race.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that in the past.
Right. Then my last 2 are more nutrition and supplement based.
Okay. This is not an advertisement, but
no,
here we
this
go.
is not an advertisement. So after years of avoiding any kind of supplementation, I've always been really against it. I started focusing, because I'm always focusing on a sort of healthy diet, right? That's we talk a lot about balanced plate and not having a particular agenda for any kind of diet, right? Whatever. But I did do a couple things this year.
Okay.
And one is I jumped on the creatine bandwagon.
Oh, man.
I know.
Creatine came for you, finally.
Yeah, brah. But actually, I found it super helpful for like high end, and it really noticed a difference in the high end, especially in the biking. It was high end work.
When do you take it?
I just take it in the morning.
Okay, cool.
So this segues into my second one.
Okay.
Which, I jumped on the Athletic Greens bandwagon as well.
Oh,
That's
my gosh.
number 2.
You
I know.
also take that in the morning?
How cliche.
If you're listening, Athletic Greens, we do accept sponsorship deals. So
I do. So actually, I do put my creatine actually in my AG1.
Okay,
and so
nice.
have a little mix it around with a bunch of other things as well too. But seriously, I was feeling a bit down like last winter.
Yep.
And I just couldn't figure out, why do I just feel kind of low energy? And so, I kind of bit the bullet and tried Athletic Greens. And honestly, I think the magic there really is just the big shot of B12 vitamins, really. And there's probably other more economical ways to skin that cat, but it's also just super convenient, and I've still been taking it to this day. So
nice.
But anyway, are you taking anything?
That's a big question. Am I taking anything? It's interesting. I actually, on the other hand, have had a pretty Spartan approach to supplementation and haven't really played around with it too much. I do really like taking all mix up collagen peptides and Live Momentous protein powder sometimes after workouts, which I think the collagen peptides are good. I don't know that they've changed my life in a big way that I can notice, but they seem to not hurt, and they have a lot of protein, which I'm into that. But I may, with this endorsement, consider getting on the creatine and AG1 bandwagon.
Go, Katie, go.
And our studio audience member, Colleen, has just endorsed creatine as well. So
she's a big creatine fan.
She is, yes.
Right.
Awesome. All right, Well, those are great lessons. You made it through your 5 pretty quickly. I guess it's my turn now. So
Yeah, do you have like 10 or do you have 25 or how many? Yeah.
4,
Oh,
which
okay.
is, you know, I'm
All
an
right.
underachiever relative
Yeah, so
to
I
you.
had one more, just for the record,
Just
right?
for the record.
Yeah.
We're taking notes.
Which just means I'm dumber, really.
All right, I'm going to try to go through them pretty quickly. So, number 1, I learned for this year that if you absolutely nail fueling, you will be faster, full stop. And for me, you know, I think I've always done an okay job with mid-workout and mid-race fueling. I've always tried to develop a plan, but this year we just kind of really tried upping the overall carb content. So in the past, I'd really probably focused on trying to get 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. And this year we pushed it up to like 70 to 80 grams of carbs per hour. And that's really, really hard to do if you're not taking in liquid sources. So I got on the Scratch Superfuel bandwagon, which basically if you use the hyper concentrated version, you can get up to like 400 calories per bottle.
Wow.
I usually do closer to like 200 calories, 250 calories per bottle. But, you know, if you're taking in 6 bottles over the course of each bottle is about 50 grams, it's very, very easy to hit those 70 to 80 grams of carbs per hour. And I just found that at both Ironman Lake Placid and Kona, as well as all my race simulations and long rides, I was not dipping on energy. And anytime I even started to feel a little bit off, if I just ate a little bit more or finished that bottle, I was back to being able to hold that consistent power and consistent watts. So, you know, we get this lesson all the time that like fueling works really, really well, but I think it's important to always remind people that that is the best performance enhancer that you can have. You know, that's totally allowed. You can push as many carbs as you want. And yeah, that's just a great way to feel really great throughout your race.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying, you know, we always talk about, you know, fueling and fitness are equal partners on
Yes.
race day.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Especially the longer your race is. But even, you know, at some shorter distance races too, I think if I were to race, say, an Olympic distance try, you're still out there for 2 to 3 hours. And that's a great time to be taking in carbs because especially in these liquid formats, you're just going to be topped off. You're not going to bonk. You're not going to have an energy dip.
So you were using both liquid carbs and
I
solid
was.
carbs?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I find that if I do only liquid, I start to sort of have this like sloshy feeling, or, you know, I'll get to hour 9 of racing and I'm like, I haven't eaten anything all day, even though I've technically been getting enough carbs. So my stomach will sometimes kind of just feel like a little hollow. So for me, the best combination is that bottle plus a little bit of solid food. So I'll take in fig bars, macro bars. We'll do a whole episode on this at some point. And then my other special trick is in Ironman racing, I love to take in Coke. So I have flat Coke at aid stations, and that's what I switch over to, and it's got a lot of carbs. So
What's your favorite thing to eat on the bike?
on the bike, I like fig bars a lot. Yeah, we do these, I think, Nature's Bakery fig bars, and they're really easy to get down. And I think one single little fig bar has probably 20 something grams of carbs. So they've always worked really well for me.
If we could get one sponsorship, it would be Nature's Bakery.
It would. Yes, it definitely would.
Shout out to Nature's Bakery.
We love you.
Hashtag.
All right, on to tip number 2, or lesson number 2. I think I learned this year that your level of pre-race nerves or anxiety, that level is not directly proportional to race outcomes. So this is sort of an N of 2 that I'm working with, but it does go back to many, many years of racing. And I found that, you know, leading up to Lake Placid this year, I was really, really nervous for a lot of different reasons. I spent a lot of time thinking about all the uncontrollables. Like, I have my fitness, but what if my bike explodes sometime on the course? Or what if I get kicked in the face on the swim and I lose my goggles, and all these things that I just couldn't control. And then before Kona, you know, I basically had the mindset that I was there for a victory lap. I was going on vacation thereafter, which was really exciting. I had proven everything I wanted to with Ironman Lake Placid. And as it turned out, I had a pretty good day at both races. You know, I think I performed at the level of my fitness in both races. I had a good time in both races. I didn't fall off the wagon. And I think this just led me to realize that, you know, as long as you feel good about the controllables, as long as you've done your training, you can choose whether to be stressed about the uncontrollables or not. And that stress is not going to necessarily material change the outcome of your race. In fact, you know, for some people, maybe a ton of stress going in about the uncontrollables could be at the expense of your race results if you're not sleeping the whole week leading up to it. So all this is to say that yes, uncontrollables happen, but that's the definition. You cannot control them and you can't change them. So thinking about ways to just go in and trust what you can control, I think will probably be a big mantra for me and something that I hope I can share with my athletes as well.
That's a great lesson.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is also related to Ironman Lake Placid and Kona. A third lesson that I took away from training was, what it was like to do the same progression that I'd done in 2019. So race Ironman Lake Placid, qualify for Kona, and then go, which is really a short amount of time. Lake Placid at the very end of July, and then you're recovering from that for almost a month, and then it's September, and then your race is in the second week of October. So I think in 2019, I really wanted to, have another great performance at Kona, and I ended up just getting back into the training way too fast, way too hard, and almost immediately got injured. After 2 or 3 long runs, I was injured in between Placid and Kona, which ultimately I was able to race at Kona, but I did not run leading up to it, which was really scary. Yep. And this year, I kind of approached it in a relaxed mindset of I'm going to have fun. I did some gravel bike riding. I did some trail running. I did some not training at all. I did a couple of sort of key workouts, but they were nowhere near as long as the build to Placid. And as it turned out, my Placid fitness kind of just carried, and I had a fun day there too. So all that is to say, if we're racing people in the future who are doing 2 big races back to back like that, I think trying to optimize for both and have the perfect A race build for both is really, really dangerous territory. So I was glad that I kind of backed it off. And thank you, Jim, for the training plan that guided me in the right direction with that.
You're welcome.
All right. Last big lesson for me was, and this is kind of getting back to what we were talking about with mental health, but I think I learned a hard lesson this year that it's just really, really hard to perform at your maximum levels and especially follow an elite Ironman training plan when you're dealing with a lot of life stress. So for me this year, the spring was just a challenging time for a lot of different reasons. I was going through a lot of sort of career uncertainties and some life uncertainties and challenges. And I tried to hold on to the same level of training that we'd been doing since January. It had been going well for so many months and I really wanted to. And at a certain point, I sort of just hit a breaking point. And I got to the point where, I was not being able to nail those workouts. I was barely kind of training at all. Exercise was not a mechanism for feeling better. It was just a really, really hard time. And I think the good thing that I took out of that was, I learned a lot about different modifications and swaps that you can do to workouts. And sometimes when you just need to not do anything, there were a couple days where I tried to gear myself up to go out for that 16-mile long run. First decided to modify it to a trail run because I thought that'd be more fun, and then modified it to I'm going to go for a walk for 30 minutes and then I'm going to sit on the couch. And that's not something I think Katie of previous years would have done.
Can confirm.
Yes. But I think it was a really good lesson to learn, and something that I'd love to take to my other athletes is, mental health, physical health, training, all these things go together, and just powering through and trying to nail every single workout perfectly is often really counterproductive during these times. So I was glad that I could pivot a little bit, do what I needed to do, make mental health my number one priority, and then still be able to come back and have a decent race.
Which really segues into sort of the 3 lessons that I learned in coaching this year, which was the first one was exactly what we just talked about. So you don't have to always hit all the key workouts in the plan, right?
Yep.
We have to talk about that. The plan is this illusion of control, right? There are many roads to Rome. With that said, you need to have a plan to change the plan. But I think we learned this year that, especially if you are an experienced athlete, there are a lot of modifications that you can make based upon what's happening in your life. And I think before both of you and I both as sort of coach and athlete looking at the plan saying, we must hit these plans, we must hit these key workouts. This is it, right? This is the way to get there. And I think we learned this year there's just a lot of flexibility in that.
I mean, I'll add that I did not even do my week 4 race sim. That we've talked about is historically the most important workout leading into an Ironman. I was supposed to go to Lake Placid to do it, and I didn't. And I went trail running for a couple days in the rain instead. And, I still had an okay day. I've been to Lake Placid before. So all this is to say, if you're having a hard time, loop in your coach. I was really appreciative of how open you were to being really flexible with the plan on that. And we can always figure something out. But just putting your head down and trying to do it is never really the answer here, because that will just push you off the rails even further.
Exactly.
And you don't want to end up in a position where you don't have a choice and you can't do it.
So high five to both of us.
Yeah, high five to both of us. We got across the finish line at Placid.
In a great race. Okay,
Awesome.
My second lesson was the case of twos.
Okay.
Okay, right? This is very common for coach and athlete, which is the case of twos is too much, too fast, and too soon.
The terrible twos.
The terrible twos, exactly right. So a little bit of a case study here. I had a very motivated new athlete who was discovering their athletic self. And we started off and they were very, very enthusiastic. And it turned out we were just exercising 7 days a week, which should have been the first flag. So we need to always have one day off in there, especially for a new athlete.
Yep.
So that was the first warning sign. So after a period of base building, we started with some 2x per week of 5K, 10K run intervals, and that went pretty well. But after a few months, this athlete unfortunately started to develop a little bit of an Achilles injury, and that ended up plaguing them for another couple months. And so in retrospect, given that this was a new athlete and sort of, newish to running, I probably should have limited the speed work to maybe a half marathon and 10K paces, and maybe done like once a week as opposed to, twice a week it would do for a more advanced athlete. So that was really on me. So usually these injuries start occurring weeks before they manifest, right? Yeah. So you'll see, oh, my Achilles hurts now. It's like, well, that probably started weeks ago, right? So this was really on me. So the cool part about doing this podcast was I actually was preparing for this. I went back and started looking at some of my new athletes that I'm working with right now. And I started looking at some of the heart rates and some of the stuff we're doing now. And I actually, just a couple of days ago, went back and reduced intensity on a number of athletes, right? Saying it's January. We don't need to get there that quickly, right? So so I'm going to try to take this lesson and actually, move forward with it in 2024.
I love that. Well, it's interesting too, because I think the coach does have to listen to the athlete, but often when the athlete is saying like, I want to do more, I want to do more, I want to do more, that's sometimes a moment for the coach to pull back. Whereas if the athlete is saying, I need to do less, 100%, we listen to the athlete. But if it's, I want to do a lot more, that's where we just have to think about everything we've talked about with zone 2 and modifying that intensity in the beginning.
Yeah, as coaches, I think most of our job is holding people back, really, right? It's not really motivating people. We have a lot of motivated people.
Yep, all the ducklings on a leash. Yes. That's how we think about it. Awesome.
So number 3 was we took a page from the Norwegians. That's all the rage right now. Everybody's doing Norwegian training. But I did a deep dive and really dug into that. And what my takeaway from the Norwegian training was they just did a lot of tempo sub threshold running, right? And then they just sort of did this over a 10 to 14 weeks, right? So as opposed to doing a VO2 max work, which is pretty high end, you do it over 6 to 8 weeks. But for our long distance athletes, just doing a bit of a slower build and having it really sub threshold over that longer time period seemed to work pretty well. So we tried that out, both on you and
I was
Kevin
one of the guinea pigs, or as you call me, the first pancake.
Yeah, it's
a little funky around the edges, but ultimately tastes good. I actually really like this progression. It was awesome because I think we always talk about the zone 3 area as being so bad, but there's a big difference between, you walk out the door and your training partner is going too fast, so immediately you're at zone 3 and you can't breathe for the whole hour. Versus I'm doing a 2 to 3 mile warm up, zone 1 ramping into zone 2, and then we intentionally hit these tempo segments. I thought that was fantastic. And when there was some mindset behind it, I had no problem being at, say, 158 heart rate or something during a run, because I knew that was the goal. But again, it was still supported by 80-20. Just that was sort of the flavor of the 20 for some of our harder stuff.
Yeah. So who says we can't zone 3?
Yeah, we can zone 3.
Yeah, we can zone 3. They're the best of them.
Yes. Awesome.
Anyway, okay. Yeah. So did you have some lessons?
Yes, I had some lessons.
Did you learn anything in 2023, Katie?
Nothing, not a thing. All right, I'm going to fly through my lessons from coaching really quick now. The first one was that, I don't know if you as athletes have noticed, but you can turn on Garmin or Apple Watch or different types of fitness trackers, you can turn on different types of data uploading to your training peaks. So I was starting to see some of my athletes were uploading things like sleep data or HRV. And it was really interesting for me to actually use those markers, not as the only thing that's going to define a training plan, but as something that helps me understand where they're at. So if I see a run that looks like pace-wise it should be pretty easy and their heart rate's really high, it was really interesting to go back and see well, look, they've gotten 4 hours of sleep for the last 3 nights and they're in the middle of finals at Dartmouth, for example. So just using those things, I think it's just more and more data to bring to the table. So if you're interested, we recommend kind of throwing that data in, and I'm excited to continue using it for my athletes this year.
So were you making changes to people's plans based upon HRV or?
I try to think of these indicators as all things that just give me a holistic picture of where the athlete is at. So I'm not really making modifications to training plans every single day unless, say, someone is injured and really needs that type of attention. But if I'm seeing comments on workouts that are just I'm really not feeling well, I'm not sure why, maybe we see HRV has plummeted and they're getting sick or just different things like that. I talked about in our 3rd episode about, for example, menstrual cycle tracking. Again, just one thing that I use to think about where an athlete is at and potential explanations for how things are going or how things might trend. But yeah, I'm just excited to have more data, and hopefully we could have an episode on just different types of data that are useful to us. But at the end of the day, I think HRV is an interesting one and sleep is really, really important.
Right. There's a lot of good data, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad data.
Good data
Yeah,
about
that'll be a great episode.
Yeah. And then one thing I'd like to add to that was a really cool lesson for me was I rolled out sort of this weekly check-in survey with my under 25 athletes this year, where basically it was just a Google form that I dropped into their training peaks every week. And what I wanted from them was a 1 to 5 rating on their perceived physical health and their perceived mental health. And then I left some spots where they could elaborate on that if they wanted to, as well as some areas where they could tell me about, something they were proud of from the last week or something they wanted to work on for the next week. But the bare minimum was just give me a 1 to 5 on physical and mental health. And that was so helpful for me as a coach as well, to just know like, wow, this athlete is going through a lot right now. And it's not a great time for me to say, let's do an FTP test, because stress levels are super high and their mental health is too. So in general, I think that was great for me. And I hope to actually be able to roll that out with all my athletes, because I think everyone has stuff going on. And as coaches, it's hard. At the end of the day, like, we're not necessarily mental health providers in a trained capacity, but what we do does intersect with all elements of life so much that it's just really helpful to have some context. And again, like, just knowing that someone is a 2 is super helpful to me without knowing all the intricacies of their life.
I have to admit, so Training Peaks has that you can do like a 1 to 10. There's a smiley face and
I think it's on how a workout feels.
How
right?
a workout feels, right? Yeah. I have to admit, I tend to ignore that or don't do it. And I don't think most of my athletes do that.
Yeah.
And I kind of like your method of just it's separate out of Training Peaks.
Yeah.
Right. I think sometimes we just sort of I don't know, ignore Training Peaks, or they use it
Sure.
for like the data, put our comments in there. But I like this idea of taking something sort of out of that and being more specific, right, about filling out this form. That's a good idea.
And I think there's a big difference between like on a week scale versus on a daily scale. I don't need someone to give me their 1 to 5 rating every single day, because we sometimes have a great day and we sometimes have a bad day. But if for like 3 weeks in a row someone's really just like not feeling great, not sleeping, all these different things, that's where we're going to need to make some bigger changes to the plan. So yeah, hoping to roll that out in a bigger capacity this year.
I may steal that plan.
Yeah.
I may steal that from you
Sure.
from 2024.
As long as you trademark it.
Okay.
And yeah, related to this, final thing that was a lesson that I'm super proud of is I think that with this new data and this check-in survey and just really good dialogue with athletes, I found that I was almost able to divert injuries before they happened. So it was really cool to have athletes let me know immediately when they had just some sort of niggle going on. And we used a lot of the tips that we talked about in the last episode, taking 1 to 2 days off, just dialing things back. And a lot of the time that led people who have, chronic like trouble spots, they were able to avoid those turning into full-blown injuries in advance of their races. So I was just really proud of that, because I think we can maybe come closer to cracking the code on injury prevention if we're working with athletes like this. So yeah, that was really, really cool.
Phew, that's a lot of lessons.
We did it. Wow, this was a lot of lessons. This is going to be our longest episode ever. So thank you to everyone who has stayed until now. We did actually want to take just a couple more minutes quickly to introduce a new segment, which is going to be our gear pick of the week.
This is our favorite part.
Yeah, so we love gear. We've talked about this in the past. We love gear as much as we love Zone 2. And we've spent a lot of time thinking about gear because we've wanted to make that just a seamless part of our outdoor experience. In later episodes, we'll talk about, things that we do in the mountains, not just swim, bike, run, and what we use to make that possible. So this is our first installment, and Jim is going to take the first gear recommendation for today. So you can all go out and put it on your Christmas list for next year.
All right, my gear pick of the week is gloves.
Okay.
Right? The Kinko gloves, these are $35 gloves.
Oh,
you don't need to go out and buy all kinds of fancy gloves. They're not vegan based, right?
Bummer.
They're a pigskin palm with a knit wrist, and they're lined, and they're super warm. Maybe they're great for biking. So there's basically think about them as a $35 biking glove. You can bike down to like 25 degrees. So they're good from like maybe like under 50 to 25, so a wide range. They breathe really well, and you can also take them hiking.
Nice.
So I have drawers full of very, very expensive gloves, and I don't even mention the price of some of these gloves, but the $35 Kinko gloves are the key. And we're gonna put a link right in our show notes.
And you can probably get them at your local hardware store. They're
can.
good for chainsawing, for stacking wood, all the other things Jim does for Zone 2 base building in Vermont. Awesome. All right, so my recommendation is also for winter type adventures, and I'm gonna recommend the Black Diamond Distance Spikes. They are micro spikes. So if you live in a warm climate, you don't need these, but if you live anywhere that has ice and snow, and if you spend any time in the mountains or running on trails in the snow, these are probably the best micro spikes for sort of hiking and trail running. I'll note that they're not the most durable that we've seen, but you always do have to kind of do this trade-off between durability and speed. although you don't have to do that trade-off when it comes to yourself. We always advocate for athletes who are durable and speedy. But when it comes to spikes, yeah, these are super light. They're really, really grippy, and they'll usually last me about a season. So just keep that in mind. They often have good Black Friday sales. So I stocked up on 2 pairs this year because I know that I'll probably use them, but awesome for being able to trail run on snowy or icy terrain. So I'm sure I'll use them in this Sea to Summit build quite a bit.
We did it.
We did it.
Wow. Thanks, peeps, for sticking with us.
Thank you for sticking along, and definitely check out our extended show notes on the Endurance Drive website for links to any of the products we mentioned today, as well as extended just information that we shared. And please consider giving us a rating or a review or a telegram.
Thanks, peeps.